Jungkook's voice cut through the air like a sharp blade. The moment slowed into something surreal. The sound of jet through the air, and Wine's breath hissed as a warm spray of splattered across her cheek. Her eyes widened, and her heart stopped for a split second as she stumbled to her side along with Nora, as a result of getting pushed to the side by Jungkook. Jungkook! A quivering whisper of shock escaped from her lips. A strangled grunt escaped Jungkook's lips as his body jerked backward. His breath caught in his throat as the impact sent him staggering and ended up dropping on his knees with a thud as a gush of escaped through the fresh wound that he just took on his chest. No, Oppa! Ran towards Jungkook while screaming in denial. Nora took Jungkook's head on her lap and pressed her trembling hands against his wound, feeling the hot, sticky liquid seep through her fingers, while his red, pain-struck eyes stared blankly at the open sky above him. Wine directly glared at the source from where the head came, and her dark gaze locked onto Maya's scared gaze. Maya was standing stuck in her position, still aiming the smoking in the previous position, as the shock that she had accidentally shot the guy she was ready to kill for was enough to make her freeze. Tears burned Wine's glaring red eyes as she slowly turned her face towards Jungkook, whose breathing was getting shallow, uneven, and his each gasp was sending a fresh wave of fear pressing into her. Without taking her eyes off of Jungkook for even a moment, she raised her in Maya's direction by twisting her arm backward and pulled her on the leg, deliberately missing the spot that could potentially cause her death. Maya fell to the ground, withering in pain, unable to run. Vine forced herself to snap out of the shocked blank state that her mind was trying to dive in. She wrapped his arm around her neck and with Nora's help, she pulled him up, taking his whole body weight on hers. She began dragging him to the car when Yoongi and his men reached and held him, taking him away from her friend. As they laid his now almost lifeless body in the backseat of the car, Yoongi turned towards Vine, who was scarily calm and quiet. Go with Jungkook, make sure she survives. I need her alive. Pointed toward her back while looking Yoongi dead in the eye. Saying this, she got into the car and sat after placing Jungkook's head on her lap, her one hand pressing against his wound. The car started and moved at its fullest capacity. Vine found her trembling fingers wiping the sweat over his forehead before they made their way to his hairs, stroking them gently. At her touch, Jungkook's lashes fluttered weakly, and even in this condition a small smile spread across his face. Why? Choked out a devastated whisper as a tear rolled down his cheek and landed on Jungkook's forehead, causing his eyes to open a little. For once, I wanted to be on the giving end. Tit for tat. Gasped painfully at the end of his broken sentence, causing a shiver to run down Vine's spine. Finally let out her sobs that she was suppressing all this time. You idiot! I swear if you die on me, what will you do? Kill me? Even when bearing so much pain, he didn't forget to be angry. Stay with me. She breathed, her voice broke. Jungkook exhaled heavily, a weak, tearing smirk tugged at his lips despite the pain. Dramatic much? Shut up. Just shut up. You're gonna be fine, okay? Just hold on. Vine just kept looking at him as if her own life was slipping through her fingers. She had never felt fear like this before. Sensing her condition, Jungkook spoke once again. No time. A sluggish, lazy smirk adorned his pale face once again. And even if I die, don't marry anyone else. She let out a strangled laugh, but her hands wouldn't stop shaking, nor her tears stopped falling. Why? Because I'll haunt you. And I'm kinda in love with my fiancé. And I don't let go what's mine. Speaking got more difficult for him as his eyes gave up too. Coughing, his body completely went limp as Vine's roar ripped through the space, raw and bitter, like something inside her had been torn apart. Drive fast! At the hospital. The red lights outside the operation room went out as doctor emerged through the doors. Before Yoongi and Nora could reach the doctor, Vine crossed past them and stood in front of the doctor, her gaze questioning and threatening at the same time. However, as the doctor broke the news, Vine's world crackled. Her eyes went wild, and pure panic clouded her expression. And for the first time, Everyone watched her stunned. Entering the dark basement room where air was charged with the smell of sweat and fear, Vine walked with grace and a purpose. Her leather boots left a trail of print on the wet concrete floor as she approached the figure to a pillar. Suddenly, a 100-volt bulb turned on over their heads, illuminating the whole basement. The closed her eyes tightly, as this was the first time in 2 months that she was seeing light and probably wouldn't be able to see it again for a long time. Though the natural light was hurting her eyes as she was used to live in the dark, she slowly opened her eyes and squinted to focus on the face in front of her, only to meet with a pair of intense dark eyes staring back at her like a hungry vulture, ready to tear the meat off of her bones. "You were so eager to trap me," she whispered, voice as calm as a creepily soothing lullaby. "Tell me, was it worth it?" A choked sob, a desperate whimper, escaped Maya's pale red lips as wine was rang in her ears like a whistle. "Don't think so." Her lips curled into a slow smile, which was disturbingly void of any emotion. Spoke in a hoarse voice. "Please, let me go." Crying hard while coughing as she couldn't even gulp properly because the last time she had water was 2 days ago. Wine made sure to give her enough water and food just to keep her barely breathing. Giving her an unforgiving glance, Wine made her way to sit on the sofa. With a mere lift of an eyebrow, one of the guards from many guards guarding the basement like demons of hell immediately figured out what she was commanding. He opened Maya's, dragged her limping body, and made her sit on the cold metal chair in front of Wine. He tied Maya to a chair this time, whereas she was too out of energy to comprehend her surroundings. "Do you like cooking?" The cold tone sent the shivers of fear down Maya's spine, and she slowly lifted her head to look at Wine with pure horror. Wine leaned too much close to Maya's face, making her shake her head vigorously in fear as she knew Wine was up to no good. And just like that, Maya's agonizing screams filled the silence in the cold basement within a few seconds as Wine, her skin with a lighter. Maya's pleas fell on Wine's deaf ear as she continued her deed calmly, making the guards share nervous glances with each other. She stopped and lifted the lighter off of her skin. She tilted her head to look at the guard, who immediately stepped in front of her and handed her something before backing away with respect and fearful breath. "You should have answered me when I asked you to let it go," spoke as she examined the salt in her hand that was given by the guard just a moment ago. Maya's breathing was getting louder, as if she was trapped in a haunted house. Wine sprinkled the salt over her burnt wounds, making her scream louder than she had ever screamed. "Well, I don't like it, but right now I wasn't. They were very kind, but presence helps you relax a lot." A deep dry chuckle escaped her throat, giving goosebumps to everyone present in the room. Maya's screams died along with her guilty look, yet she continued whimpering. In the past few years, Wine had come with uncountable new one every time ways off, yet she never ended it. Time was the last thing she was willing to give, but it looked like something was holding her. "You should have thought about the consequences before ending." Spoke without emotion as she stood up. "I didn't want him. I can never. Him. I love him. That was meant for you," yelled while crying hysterically as if she had lost her last bit of sanity. A loud slap echoed as Maya's face turned to the other side. Her busted lip bled profusely as a red mark got printed on her cheek like a permanent tattoo. Wine harshly grabbed her hair from the back of her head and jerked her face to face her. "Then you shouldn't have missed it. Your one mistake snatched what was mine." Left her hair with a harsh stroke. "Now bear the consequences." Wine masked the pain in her eyes with anger as her red eyes refused to disrespect her by letting her tears fall. She made her way out of the basement, and just like that, the basement drowned into darkness once again. Who wouldn't dare to lift their gazes due to respect, obedience, and fear? Looked at the guard to his side and spoke. "That was cold." His voice came out trembling in fear with a hint of fascination hidden there. "That's not fear. That's her being." Spoke while hesitantly glancing at her disappearing figure.